So today I'm going to work on this Game Boy DMG. I'm adding the internal Prosound mod, bypassing the internal amplifier of the Game Boy in order to get a little bit better audio quality out of it. For this mod I needed a tri-wing screwdriver to disassemble the Game Boy. I needed some wire strippers in order to strip the wire. This is the wire that I'm going to use. This is some ribbon cable from a computer or floppy disk. Wire cutters, some flux, some solder, soldering iron, and those are the basic tools I'll need to do this mod today. So this is the back half of the DMG. This is the volume knob, and this is the audio output board with the audio jack, the jack that we're going to use, which is why it's called the internal Prosound mod. We're going to use the one that's built in instead of adding a new one. So I'm going to zoom in down to close to where the audio jack is, and we're going to need to solder some wires to some of these pins right here. This first one is the ground pin. Then you have a choice whether or not you want the audio to come from before or after the potentiometer. If you choose before, then you're going to get a fixed volume, a fixed output level sound. And if you choose after, you're going to be able to control the volume or the signal strength using the built-in volume knob or pot. So today I'm going to go ahead and use the post pot connections, and that way we'll have control over the sound output. So if this first pin is ground, the next pin is for the post output right channel, and then the third pin from the left is the post output left channel. If we wanted the pre-pot signal, then we would keep going over to this fourth one, which is the pre-pot left channel, and then all the way to the right here is the pre-pot right channel. So next I'm going to zoom in down to where the audio output is. So now I'm going to show you the connections at the headphone jack, the audio output board. I'm going to zoom in down here, and as you can see, there are 4 wires that are coming over from the main board down to this audio output board. The first one here is the white wire. That is the switching wire for when you plug the headphone jacks in, that enables or disables the speaker. The next wire, which is the black wire here, is the ground. The next wire is the right output, and the last wire here is the left output. So what we're going to do is cut the left and right output wires and then run jumpers over from the 2 connections we choose on the pot, either pre or post pot. We're going to use the left and right channel, use jumper wire and jumper over and solder to these 2 points right here. So I went ahead and pre-cut my jumper wire. Again, this is just some floppy drive ribbon cable that I borrowed from an old computer, and I've gone ahead and pre-tinned stripped and pre-tinned the end connectors just to make it a little bit faster. So what we're going to do is solder on these 2 points on this side, and then go back over to the audio output board. So this first pin is the ground pin, and then the next pin is going to be the post right pin. I'm going to use, I happen to have a wire that's tinted red, so I'm going to use right as red for this one. And I've got this lead just a little bit too long. It's gonna short on this pin here. I'll also shorten that down. And I'm also going to add a little bit of solder to this pin. There's not quite very much on them. And I'm going to go ahead and shorten this one too. It seems like it might be just a little bit too long. It's pretty tight. It's quarters right here. And I've got a little bit too much solder in between the right and ground pin, and so I'm just going to try to use some wick and tidy that up a bit. Okay, so I've cleaned up the little bit of stray solder. There's some that got on this foil here, but that's not really going to hurt anything as long as it's not bridging over. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a tug and make sure my connections, whenever you're soldering onto, you know, pins instead of through the holes like you probably would be best, but since we don't have that option, give this a little bit of a tug and make sure my my soldering is going to hold up. Okay, now that I've got the wire soldered onto where over by the pot, I'm going to go down to the audio out board and make those connections there. I'm going to go ahead and add some solder to the existing I'm just going to grab some tweezers to hold this and make it a little bit easier for me. That's pretty tight quarters there. Okay, I'm going to give those a little bit of a tug and do a visual inspection. Alright, those look pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut the two wires that run from the main board here down to the audio board, and I'm going to cut the right and left outs. So those are the two first wires here and here. And I've cut these short, coming out of this little plastic binding contraption, and so these two wires, you know, can't get too close to each other and can't get close to anything else, so I don't have to worry too much about tying those up to prevent shorts. So I've decided that the easiest thing to do with these, since you can't really reuse these wires anyway now that they've been cut, you're not going to be able to splice them back. And if somebody wanted to remodify this later, they're still not going to be able to use these. So the easiest thing to do, instead of trying to, you know, hot glue them down or use some electrical tape, is just to cut them on the other side again, right before this the binding post. But there's another one down here, right there. I'm just going to cut right there, and then they'll be in nobody's way. Okay, so down there they're not going to do anybody any harm. They can't touch each other and they can't really touch anything else. So I'd say that's good to go. Okay, well that was pretty simple. That's the internal Prosound mod on a Game Boy DMG.